What would happen if the true story behind Hamilton's penalty in Mexico 2025 was completely different from what you saw online? To understand the true scope of the incident between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen at the 2025 Mexican Grand Prix, it is necessary to analyze not only the exact moment in which it occurred, but also the strategic and technical context that surrounded it. What happened on lap 6 was not a simple driving error, but a combination of extreme pressure, variable track conditions and decisions that set the course of the race and possibly the championship. The duel began on the main straight. Verstappen had been coming back from a tense start, after having given ground to the Ferraris in the first corners. Hamilton, who had started third after one of his best classifications with Ferrari, maintained a precise defensive line. On the approach to turn 1, Verstappen launched an aggressive attack on the inside, a maneuver that we have already seen him execute dozens of times, braking late, compromising the rival's line and forcing him to open up. Hamilton reacted by trying to stay on the outside without giving up position. The two matched up, and that intense fight extended until turn 4. It is in that curve where the critical moment occurs. Hamilton, in full defense of his position, was forced to brake in an area where the level of grip is historically low. According to his own radio testimony, the grip at that point was practically non-existent. He locked the front wheels, lost the optimal line, and instead of taking the curve, cut through the grass and escape area. But the crucial point is what happens when leaving that loophole. Hamilton rejoins the track just in front of Verstappen without having lost position. From a regulations point of view, this is what the FIA considers a lasting gain of advantage. Although it was not an overtake but rather a defense, the rule is clear. If a driver leaves the track and upon rejoining maintains a position that he would have lost if he had not cut, he must return it voluntarily or he will be penalized. Hamilton did not return the position and therefore received a 10-second penalty. But the problem was not only technical, it was also perceptual. Because on that same lap, and also in the first corners of the race, both Verstappen and Leclerc had cut chicanes or escapes. The difference, as explained by the FIA, is that neither Verstappen nor Leclerc gained direct position by doing so, which exempted them from sanction. Hamilton, on the other hand, defended a position that he would have lost, and that put him in the crosshairs. Here comes in a key strategic component, the type of tires that both drivers used. Hamilton had come out with a softer compound, which gave him an advantage in initial traction but degraded more quickly. Verstappen, for his part, opted for a more conservative strategy. This meant that Hamilton's window of opportunity to maintain position against a Red Bull with superior race pace was very small. Every defense, every meter counted. And that explains why Hamilton chose to risk the limit in that corner, knowing that losing position there could mean never regaining it on the track. Technically, the maneuver was questionable but not dirty. There was no direct contact, there was no deliberate blocking by the rival, and Hamilton also did not try to push Verstappen off the track. He simply made an error in judgment under pressure, left the track and did not return the position, which in the current regulatory framework implies a sanction. But even so, many drivers, engineers and analysts agreed that the penalty was excessively severe based on the context and comparisons with other unsanctioned incidents in that same race. Furthermore, the penalty was not applied immediately. Hamilton continued several more laps without knowing he would be penalized, which affected Ferrari's strategy. It was only on lap 13 when his engineer, Riccardo Adami, informed him by radio of the penalty, unleashing an angry reaction from the driver. This delay in the decision was also the subject of criticism from specialized media, since it limits a team's ability to adjust its strategy in real time. In short, what happened on lap 6 of the Mexican GP was much more than a track closure. It was a complex sequence of human, technical, and strategic factors that ended up punishing Hamilton not only with a regulatory sanction, but with a total loss of competitive rhythm, completely altering his career. An incident that, although it does not contain the drama of a crash or abandonment, has an enormous symbolic weight for the Ferrari-Hamilton project and for the media narrative that followed it. The 10-second penalty imposed on Hamilton at the Mexican Grand Prix was not just a regulatory punishment. It was a sporting ruling that completely altered the outcome of his career, fractured his competitive drive and revealed, with brutal clarity, how fragile the balance between strategy and execution can be in Formula One. Before the incident with Verstappen, Hamilton was not only having his best performance of the year, but was also in an ideal position to claim his first podium with Ferrari. He had it all: consistent pace, privileged track position, tire control, and a car with predictable behavior. But everything fell apart after that lap 6. When the penalty was announced, Ferrari had to rethink its strategy in real time. Instead of planning an undercut or managing a long stint, the priority now was to absorb the penalty in the least painful way possible. The team decided that Hamilton would serve the 10-second stop during his first scheduled pit stop, on lap 24. This seemingly routine moment became the turning point of the race. Hamilton entered the pit lane from third position, but after serving the penalty and changing tires, he returned to the track in 14th position. Not only had he lost 10 real seconds, but much more in terms of competitive pace. Instead of taking to the track in clean air and being able to attack at his own pace, he rejoined in heavy traffic, just behind Oscar Piastri's McLaren. That meant dealing with aerodynamic turbulence, overheating tires and loss of load in key sectors. And here another element comes in, the psychological impact. A driver like Hamilton, with more than 300 Grand Prix contested, knows perfectly well when a race is lost. His radio communication after learning of the sanction was clear. "That's shit, man. The grip there is very low." But behind that phrase there was something else. Contained frustration, a feeling of helplessness, and perhaps even a latent doubt about whether this new chapter with Ferrari was going to be so different from the stagnation he experienced in his last seasons with Mercedes. Despite everything, the British attempted an aggressive comeback. He surpassed some rivals in clean and decisive maneuvers, and managed to climb positions in the middle of the pack. But the racing conditions were no longer favorable. The SF25's pace in dirty air dropped noticeably, and the hard tire compounds it had fitted for the second stint showed a drop in performance greater than that estimated by the team in previous simulations. Finally, after more than 20 laps managing brake temperatures, degradation and traffic, he crossed the finish line in 8th position. 4 points. A minuscule amount if compared to the 15 he would have obtained if he had maintained that third place. This numerical consequence of the podium to 8th place not only defined the weekend, but also conditioned the start of a campaign that was already going uphill. In a championship as tight as 2025, where McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes fight head-to-head, losing 11 points in a single race can be costly later on. And for a driver who has built his legacy on consistency, this crash was not just a bad result. It was a psychological, strategic and media obstacle with repercussions that will continue to resonate throughout the calendar. The 10-second penalty on Lewis Hamilton in the 2025 Mexican GP has been analyzed ad nauseum, but what has really ignited the debate is the comparison with other incidents that occurred in that same race and during other moments of the championship. Did the FIA apply the regulations consistently? Or are we facing a new case of double standards? The first thing to understand is that the current regulations establish that if a driver gains or maintains a position by going outside the track limits, he is obliged to return it immediately, or else he will be sanctioned with a standard penalty. In theory, this rule is clear. But in practice, its interpretation has been anything but uniform. During the first corners of the Mexican Grand Prix, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc also left the track limits. Both cut turn 2 during the exit, taking a straighter path through the runoff to avoid the traffic jam at the tight turn. However, none were punished. The official justification was that neither won a direct position. But this is where the cracks in the judgment appear. In the case of Leclerc, although he did not overtake anyone, he avoided a possible loss of position, something that, from a strategic point of view, can be as decisive as an overtake. Verstappen, for his part, overtook Russell just before reaching turn 1, but after cutting to the outside in turn 2, he remained ahead without returning position. Again, the FIA considered that there was no direct gain, which avoided sanctions. Where then is the line between a lasting profit and a career situation? This is where enforcement enters a gray area. Hamilton's case, however, was judged more harshly. Upon rejoining after cutting turn 4, the FIA argued that he had maintained the third position that he should have given up. But what many wonder is, wasn't that a situation analogous to what Verstappen did? Both came out under pressure, both held position. Only one was penalized. Beyond the final result in the Mexican GP and the penalty that altered his career, there was a much deeper aspect that went unnoticed by the majority of the general public. Hamilton's technical performance that weekend represented an unexpected qualitative leap within the Ferrari 2025 project. What happened on the track was not simply a good qualifying or a solid start to the race. It was a demonstration of adaptation, driving intelligence and variable management that even surpassed the Maranello team's own predictions. At the regulatory level, it was a reasonable sanction within the technical parameters. But on a symbolic level, it was the moment in which a doubt was sown. Is Hamilton measured by the same criteria as the rest? Or are you being swept up in a narrative that denies you the benefit of the doubt? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.